Hello and welcome to this edition of Kitty and the Cosmos, where today we're going to be exploring fairies, elementals, and little people of the land. Obviously, for centuries they've been talked about. People do and don't believe in them. I think there's also a spectrum of things that go bump in the night have been, classified as the fairies. There's that Irish myth about if a young man's walking on his own and he's aware there's a presence and he calls out, he loses his soul. It's a mythology, but we'll look at that. So there's a lot of things that have been born out of mystery, and we've got to work out whether the energy is truly there, what form the energy takes. And what made me decide to do this one is that I was out walking where I am, rambling in the woods and the countryside, and I have a strong connection to the oak trees. Oak trees have a certain deep wisdom and deep knowledge and a certain vibration that I really resonate with. And anybody who understands that will understand that there is a resonance and there is a tone. Everything's got a tone. Vibration has a tone, and everything has a tone. And I remember saying to somebody many years ago, "Oh, I can hear the trees." And that person went, "Oh my God." And that was that. I never said it again. But I did hear the trees. They were the Wellingtonias, they were the big firs, and they are very powerful, and they're very beautiful, very powerful. And if you sit with the redwood behind you, you can tune into the other elements quite easily, at times, depending. So I was going along, and I was suddenly aware of an elemental being that I hadn't seen before, a little fairy with slightly oval face, and I exclaimed. I said, "Oh, lovely." Carried on, more of them. Then I worked out that they appeared with water, and they said, "Yeah, we're of the water." Fine. So I said yesterday to them, "Tell me something I don't know. Tell me something that I don't know about the water and about the stuff." And they said, "Well, the moon doesn't just alter the tides. The moon is also connected to bodies of water and water in its energetic essence as well." What that could mean on a deep scale, bit beyond, I don't know, we'll have a look. But they're very much there. And I made that connection actually via the oak trees. It sounds a bit nutty, but it depends on the energy you're bringing in as you go. So if you're bringing your stresses into the woodland and you're caught up in your own stuff, you're not going to perceive anything because there's no room. You haven't left a bandwidth for any room. If you're going in and you're opening your heart and your mind to the joy of being there, of all the things around you, touching the bark, being part of it. Sounds wacky, but actually it's real. It's the science of connection, and we have been practicing the science of disconnection for a very long time. So it's about being connected. So if somebody cuddles a tree and says "om," puts their head on it, and you laugh at them, well, you can. But if that person gets some information that way, now who's laughing? See? The science of communication, of connection, the science of connection. So that was very beautiful. So I was walking along, and I'm now seeing them around the water quite a lot. And I'm talking to them about their guardianship because they're definitely there on an elemental level, with causes in hand. They're looking after things. They're talking about pollution. They're aware of things. They're very aware of the mood you bring in. I, for one, consult the elementals of the ground if I'm grazing an animal. Famously, there was a field that I had to put a couple of ponies on, and someone said, "No, you can't do that. The last lot died 17 years ago. They just died." So went in, had a chat. It wasn't the grass. It was ragwort in a bale of hay. You see, if ragwort dries in a bale of hay, I don't know whether any of you have animals or horses or anything like that, that's a killer. They'll avoid it fresh. They know the smell. They'll avoid it fresh. But dry in hay, it can go in. So that's what happened there. So here we are 20 years on, not a peep and a problem from that field. So it really is a good thing to do, to learn to communicate with the land and be in tune with the land. There's so much out there that's distracting us and bringing us down and dividing us in that way. But the only way to balance yourselves through the chaos that's going on geopolitically now is to get out into the natural world. Use that time. Get into the natural world, breathe, and center yourself. And just go for a walk somewhere lovely that takes you away. Very difficult when you're in a city. Find a park. Or find a meditation you can take home. I do them, and I have done a couple online. I will continue to do them as well. A guided meditation you can do in the safety of your own space. And once you're in that vibration, I always talk about this, once you're on that level and that is your bandwidth per se, then you're opening yourself out to the other elements and you can perceive wherever you are, because it isn't just about being in these things are everywhere. You know, if you're walking along and you see a flower by a drain pipe, you know, in a public building, there's something energetically attached to that area of the earth that you could communicate with. Everything has consciousness. If you think that everything is part of God, the God force, if you want to call it that, or the universe, if you want to call it that, whatever you're comfortable with, then absolutely everything has a consciousness. And because you yourself are part of that and have a consciousness, communication is possible. You know, I mean, I pat my car and thank it. Yep, God's in there. Um, that brings us back to giving things a personality and a face and a name. That's the other thing about fairies. So the classical fairy is a little nymph thing with wings on. So I said, okay, I'm going to talk about the wing thing. So I said, you know, you can't fly. That's funny. You know, yeah, I see you got wings, but you know, it's. But on the plane of life where they live, they're a lighter being. They can be what they like. They can flit about. And he also likened it to the bee thing. You know, the bee wing, the vibrational bee wing. And he talked about. I felt that a young elemental would be learning within himself to send, you know, they've got special muscle groups in their bodies, and a bit like when they used to talk about fairy dust in Peter Pan, I think that's where the concept came from, the fairy dust, because the fairy dust really is your mind and imagination. You're using the power of the energy of your thought. So, you know, that the young elemental will learn to focus and his energy or her energy on moving about, and the moment they lose their concentration, they're going to drop out of the sky type of feeling. So there's something about that on that plane of life that isn't on this plane of life. And therefore they can have the vibrational wing thing going on for a different light body. It's a light body, it's not our body. It isn't even a physical tiny version of our body. You know, they are other things. And they do come in other shapes and sizes. You know, you might find you're walking along and suddenly there's somebody really quite tall next to you. You think, is that a fairy? And you think to yourself, hang on a sec, it's a spirit person. But they can be many things, um, like anything in the universe. It can appear like anything energetic. You know, the ETs can appear to you in any form that makes you feel comfortable, because that's how they're going to do it, because then you're comfortable. So we're getting to shape shifting now, aren't we? But we'll do that in another video. Are the fairies small? Well, they do seem to be. They do seem to be small. But again, I think it's irrelevant on their plane of being, that kind of size. I don't think size sort of matters at all. And I think that because of how well blended they are with the atmosphere and energy and everything, size is irrelevant. And I think it's unobtrusive as well. I would suspect that, I'm just going to check on this. Yeah, I'm being shown that, you know, you could be a tiny pea person, but your energetic field can be magnificent. So, and their perceptions, therefore. I'm being told to remind everybody that they are all around them at any given time, and to call upon them very much in the way one calls upon angels and spirit guides. It's a similar energy. So let's ask about what they think are naughty ones. No, I'm picking up joy, jolliness, and mischief, which is a gorgeous delight. So that's one thing. Evil nasties isn't part of this, because you can't be a protector and be an evil nasty. The two things don't go together, do they? Their hearts are joined to the cosmos, and the cosmos has put them in a position energetically to monitor the growing life on the planet. It's a big responsibility. It's a responsibility, but it's also a joy, and they do it for love. So, you know, that's the vibration. So let's look at that thing about the Irish, the thing about. No, I'm getting that there is a lot of fear-based stuff that's misunderstood. And my guide is now saying, look, didn't have trackers, go back a few hundred years. You didn't have anything like that. So someone disappears, it's, you know, nobody knows. There's no CCTV, you know, tricky old times, right? You've got to put it down to something. Yeah. And remember that going back a few hundred years, keeping the populace in fear kept control over them, remember? So a lot of things were fear-based, weren't there? And God was a fear-based God. You know, you had to be afraid of God. He was going to punish you and all that kind of thing. So in order for him not to punish you, you pay the church and the church will pray for you. You know, all that twisted stuff, which is the opposite of what God is. I recently visited an old country house where there were dark score marks on the beams. And I said, what are they? And she said, well, go back to the 1400s, 1500s. People still took a blessed candle, maybe earlier. People would take their candles to the church, get them blessed, melt them down, put the thumb in the wax and score the beam nearest their beds and where they were going to sleep with a mark to keep the baddie things away. I also saw that, you know, the green man face with the horns and everything dotted about, perhaps carved in stone here and there or in wood, because everything was fear-based. Things they didn't understand were fear-based. So that's where a lot of these fables and stories come from. But I always say there's no smoke without fire. So I think the lack of understanding would have, and the fear-based stuff around at the time, where humanity was at the time, would have led to them putting fairies in a fear box, most definitely. I'm thinking of changelings now. My God, you said any excuse for bad behaviour? That's quite funny. You know, humanity's looking for a reason that they're such crap parents. The fairies took him and gave me this. That's quite funny. That's quite funny. I'm just asking outright. They'd have no use for a human baby. It's not. It's that. But he has just brought in the ET, so some interesting stuff going on there. So you see, no smoke without fire. So let's just have a recap. The fairies have no use for your baby. If you can't bring up the baby not to be a naughty little sod, then it's your parenting. It's not the fairies' fault. That's quite funny. And it just showed me a beam from a spaceship. So, you know, there have been things taken up and down over the period of who knows how many hundreds of years in humanity's, probably more than thousands of years, because the extraterrestrials have been around for a very long time, interacting with the energies of the earth. So they may have picked up a toddler and thought, you know, let's have a look at him and see what he does. You know, how does he walk? Does he run? Does he want his mother, or will I do? I'm blue with green spots, but you know, who cares? I've got antennae, but will that matter? So they could have been experimenting. We don't know. I'm not going to bring that in, but they did show me that aspect. So that's quite funny, because it go back to like the 1200 and something, very, very primitive mindset of people. And, you know, your child's gone and something else has appeared. You would put it down to anything, wouldn't you? And the fairies are the easiest culprits, you know, because no one had seen a spaceship, but no one knew about the ETs at that time. So, yeah, that's very funny. That's very funny. So that's relinquished the fairies of that particular responsibility. They are not the thieves of our babies. I'm so glad to hear it. Well, what would they do with them? Where would they take them? And I think, so I'm being reminded that a small child, you know, baby, small child, they're still very connected to the other side of life. That's why they stare over your shoulder and talk to other people when they're not there, because they can still see the other people. They're very fresh from heaven, aren't they? They've still got all those things with them. So, and they come in with such joy. And we just spend the first 4 or 5 years of their life just stamping it out. No, you can't. No, what are you doing? This poor joyous soul comes through, full of the joys of heaven and love. And then it just is squashed out of him. Bish, bash, bosh. No, you can't. It grows up like that. And the fairies, so because what I'm trying to explain is that they can still energetically move over to that department, to that side of life, that echelon, that vibration, that bandwidth of the fairies, but physically what you could do with the body, because I don't think they take their body with them. So then you're looking at, yeah, we won't go there either. That's a different subject. Okay, so they wouldn't be taking their bodies with them. So nobody blames the fairies for death of infants, but changeling infants, yeah. So I'm now asking more clearly, so the purpose of our interaction with them is what? Because that'd be really handy to know, you know, what could we be doing? And I know that we're expanding and we're going to perceive more and more of these things, and that's exciting. Our hand-in-hand stewardship of the planet is next. Hand-in-hand stewardship of... Imagine if, you know, skeptics, you know, and people who are really, you know, pragmatic and down to earth suddenly come and say, I've just been talking to the fairies about my garden. I've been growing my chrysanthemums all wrong all this time. You know, that'd be hilarious, wouldn't it? It'd be lovely, very funny. And God bring it on, because that would be a hoot, you know. And who knows, in the future, when everybody's expanding and they've opened out and they can perceive the way I can and other people like me can, then you've got a whole different planet, haven't you? Um, so let's have one more recap. So that the point of this is, go into the wild spaces with an open heart and with joy. Feel your way through, really connect, and you'll suddenly get a feeling that the plants are looking back at you, because the plants have a cellular memory also and have a cellular perception of light and dark. So technically, they can actually see you. They know you're there. And, you know, you'll never walk alone. That's spooky, isn't it? It isn't spooky at all. It's gorgeous. So, but they have a different concept. They have a different way of being. You know, that the plants are a collective consciousness, and but you can still, you know, even though it hasn't got 2 arms, legs, and a face, the tree, you can still perceive of its energy. You can still perceive of its intent. Famously, an oak tree predicted my last child. I went up to see it, you know, put my hands on, it greeted me, and it gave me what it could. It gave me a blossoming acorn. And of course, I understood the blossoming acorn, you know. So things give things to you in their perspective also. It's like communication with animals. They have another perspective. You know, I do a lot of work with horses. They have a different perspective. Emotional scale, yes, different perspective. So fairy perspective, there are many of them, and this particular oval face I hadn't seen before, and I will paint it. And I'm working on one at the moment. I'm going to put all the things I see in the woods in this painting. I think that would be very funny, and I would enjoy that anyway. And I hope other people will enjoy just finding them. And I think in just finding them, it will open you out to what's out there. So it's my little drip, drip, drip way of introducing that to the world. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and I will show you. I'll have some links to possibilities of getting prints and things like that. So the moon, he said, the moon does more for the water than just tides. Interesting. And I'll gain a little bit more information as we go. And the toxicity, yes. So there's an element of helping with toxicity that they are doing at the moment as well, which is sad. But don't worry about that, because the planet is changing. People are conscious. People are moving forward. People are recycling. People are caring. People are onto this toxicity thing, and that's the beauty of the journey, you know. And when we finally get back to a pristine planet, won't be in my generation. What a fantastic thing that will be. So keep doing what you can. Take your open-heartedness and your breathing and your peace out into the open spaces. Obviously, we walk and talk to ourselves and work our stuff out as well, but ask for help. The trees will help you, the fauna and flora will help you, and ask the fairies. It sounds like I'm saying, be away with the fairies. Kind of am, yeah. And if that's a survival mechanism, and if that's a key to expansion, and if that's a key to improvement of the planet in general and our own psychology and our own emotional state, then it's a pretty good thing to do. Be away with the fairies. Lots of love. See you next time. God bless all. Bye bye.